Welcome to the Motoring Podcast, your weekly discussion on motoring news. This is episode 541 on Tuesday, the 5th of September, 2023. Hello, I'm Alan.
Hello, I'm Andrew. This week, we'll be finding out about unintended consequences. In new car news, we struggle to have any reaction to a motor show's offerings. And in points of interest, we try to get over last week's FOMO. But first, we have a smidgen of follow-up, and this is all down to me. Talked about XIAOMI, the Chinese phone manufacturer that had got permission from the Chinese government to make EVs now. I mistakenly said that it was the fifth company to get that permission. It's not, it's the fourth, but it is the fourth since 2017. I needed to clarify all that. It's all clear now. Apologies for getting that mixed up, confused last week.
Okay. Apology accepted.
Thank you.
Yes. New news, super quick one. As some of you might have noticed, UK fuel prices have gone up because August, supposedly it's due to supply issues. I don't know. Well, you'd think they'd had plenty of time to sort out supply issues by now. Whatever someone somewhere down the line has done to me to end up with supply issues.
Oh, they're constraining production. That's what they're doing to keep the price up towards $100 a barrel. You know, it's at 87 when this article was written. But yeah, it's the usual game. We're just being played as ever.
Yep. There was a 7 pence per litre increase on petrol in August. That takes the average price of unleaded in the UK to 152 pence per litre. Diesel also went up by 8 pence per litre from 146p to 154p, or £1.54, as we would normally say in normal language outside of fuel prices.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you at the pump? It means that filling up a typical family car was £4.50 more expensive in August than it was in July. I think Andrew's covered why. So supposedly the supermarkets aren't price gouging in quite the way they were last year, so yay, there's something to be thankful for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that pretty much covers that story. By the way, story linked in Autocar by Murray Scullion. Well done on the new job as digital editor, Murray.
Yeah, congratulations. I will now move us on to research that is being reported in Motoring Research. Funnily enough, the Motoring Research website. Totally unintended.
It's a spiral from here on in.
Totally unintended, like the consequences of EVs that no one expected. Research by EO Charging found that 49% of the 2,000 respondents who were questioned would remove their front garden and lawn to make EV charging at home easier. But this is despite 53% believing that the trend of turning front gardens into parking spaces needs to be addressed. Plus, they know that if you put more hard standing in, this makes the issues of rainwater and potential flooding even worse because it has got nowhere to run off to except for into roads and down drains. So it's like, let me just wheel out the, if only people would ask, if we do this, what are all the consequences?
Yes. You see, I'm a bit confused by this one because I think bear in mind that this was, as Andrew said, this was research conducted by a home charging company.
Mm.
So your appropriate ladleful of salt would be a good idea at this point as well. I hate this kind of surveys because, yes, the results are totally contradictory. Do remember, if you are thinking about doing this, that you need to have the appropriate dropped curb and permission from your council before doing it. You can't just wander around slapping down some pavers. There are ways, by the way, to help deal with the runoff. Not having a solid slab of concrete is one of them. If you use pavers, which can be a pain to weed between, but if they're done properly, let the water go down through them. Similarly, gravel with terram or something below it will again let the water pass through. So there are ways of doing it without just, slapping a concrete slab.
No, you just come and throw some tarmac down.
Yeah, just I've got some left over from a job, mister.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's always the way with such research as this, that what was the questions that were specifically asked?
Yeah.
Compared to how the results are presented to us and all the rest of it. And I've seen it locally myself, people removing their front gardens to enable them to park. This is nothing to do with EVs, but just enable them to park in their front garden.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have a home charger because I don't think I can manage it without there being a problem of trailing across pavements unless I do radical changes to my front garden.
Yeah.
So I can see why people would consider it. I mean, as you said before we pressed record, how many actually would do it is different to how many say they might do it.
Well, there's that, and then there's the knock on. Then there's the cost. Then there's there's many more aspects. But yes, you're quite right about the questions. It does always make me think of that the Yes Prime Minister sketch where they're talking about conscription.
Yeah,
and there's two different sets of questions, one of which leads to one answer, one of which leads to another.
Do you want to take us to JLR, formerly known as Jaguar Land Rover, and how they are looking at the whole system to be green?
Yeah, we were discussing this before the show. We think it's quite a nice illustration of, everybody talks about EVs and all that kind of stuff, but it illustrates how manufacturers, whenever they're considering sort of green initiatives and any of these things and the traceability of their products, that they do have to think about the whole supply chain. JLR are introducing a sustainably fueled lorry fleet. And by doing that, they are looking to reduce their road freight CO2 emissions by 84%. They're going to do that by introducing 219 trucks that run on biofuels and one that is battery electric.
I presume that's the one that runs around at the depot to move things.
Yeah, or that runs short trips back and forth between Castle Bromwich and wherever else and Solihull and stuff. Then that can easily be done.
Yeah, similar to what we discussed with Tesco.
Totally. The biofuel ones are going to be run on a combination of bio-CNG, that's compressed natural gas. Compressed natural gas, it's more like street gas that you use in the house. That can be used to replace diesel, as opposed to liquid petroleum gas, which is propane, which used to be more often used to replace petrol in certain vehicles. Biofueled ones, they'll either be compressed natural gas or hydro-treated vegetable oil. So it'll be pretty much essentially what we generally refer to as biodiesel. The biodiesel will be used in existing lorries. So it's not a case of switching out a whole load of relatively newish trucks for brand new trucks and the potential wastefulness that could bring. But it's a case of also adapting their existing kit. They're also going to switch to using 15.6 meter trailers. So that is 2 meters longer than they are doing at the minute. And that should cut out 3,500 miles of weekly travel as well. There's a whole load of aspects to this, many, many dimensions to try to reduce emissions across the board and across the organization. And I think it's interesting that they're sharing this and they're sharing some of the thought that goes into it. They're not the only people doing this kind of stuff, but it's great that they're doing it. They're partnered up with DHL Supply Chain as their logistics partner. So I'm sure that most of these trucks and things will belong to DHL, with probably JLR having a couple.
No, I mean, much as we're not happy to, but we have put the boot into JLR with some of their decision making. It's good to see that there is some intelligent thought going in. And they're really looking at absolutely everything in order to, because it's going to save them money as much as it helps the environment. It is going to save them money.
The environment is the winner, and it's the one that everyone's going, look at our new green initiative. But you look at green initiatives and you go, oh, that's going to save quite a lot of money. Rarely do companies introduce green initiatives that are going to cost them an awful lot of money with no return.
Yeah. Talking of companies actually not making as much money as they'd hoped, there's been a few issues when it comes to production across the globe. Toyota, Volkswagen, and Kia have all had to stop production in various areas. Toyota, the entire Japanese production system went down last week, whilst they had a slight error when they were updating one of the software systems. The whole country came to a standstill, which immediately made everybody leap up and down and go, "Oh, you've been hacked again." And they went, No, we haven't. No, you have. You've been hacked. No, we haven't. No, it's a bit worse. We've messed up an update. Oops. But they're now up and running again, and everything's fine. Volkswagen have had problems in Slovakia. The T-Roc has been paused because there is a component supply issue. thanks to their supplier being hit by the dreadful flooding that's happened in the region of Slovenia. They don't know when that's going to be up and running, and they reckon that's actually going to impact on other models of the Volkswagen range too.
Mm-hmm.
Kia, though, not to be outdone, they decided that they would have a fire in the second floor of one of their South Korean plants, so that's shut at the moment, is due to open in the next day or two after everything's been sorted out there. Funnily enough, nobody wanted to build a car underneath a fire.
Yes, not even in Korea.
I just thought we'd bring you up to date with the trials and tribulations of running a factory.
Very true. Let's take a step sideways, though, into mobility as a service.
And this is possibly one of the news items that will please Alan the most. Long-time listeners will know.
Less so nowadays, but there was a time when I seemed to spend half a day every week booking travel to get me from the middle of the UK to many different parts of Europe. And what I said at the time when we were talking about this kind of story was what I really wanted was just an app where I could say, I want to go from here to here. Get me the cheapest, the most convenient, or let me balance what I want from those, and just tell me what will all join up together and what will work. Because at the time, in theory, I could have got a scooter from the street near me. I could have ridden that to the train station. I could have got on a train. I could have taken the train to Luton Airport Parkway. I could have then got the bus from Luton Airport Parkway up to Luton Airport. I could have flown from Luton Airport to Zurich. I could have then got the train from Zurich to Bern, and then the tram, bus, whatever I wanted in Bern to get me to my hotel. But I had to book almost every single one of those steps individually. So mostly I didn't bother. And I took the car to Luton Airport. And I booked the parking, and I took the car to Luton Airport. I did that. And then the rest of it was actually all public transport, and it all slicked together quite neatly. But I knew it was theoretically possible to get to and from home and the airport. It seems now that the government has twigged that this might be a good idea, especially with things like putting Heathrow Airport in the ULEZ.
Yes.
Because the air quality is bad. Aeroplanes, yes. As a result, the government has released a code of practice for apps. So they do allow you to do the kind of thing I've been talking about, but also they're saying there should be a number of different options within it. So they should all offer wheelchair accessible routes and stations, step-free alternatives, main roads only options for routes, and quite a few the sort of safety type ones as well. So making sure that it's only highlighted bits and safe stuff, which is all that's really good actually, because that for the rest of the team I worked with in the UK, it was one of those things where the rule was, if you, lone female traveller, are going to Paris, you will book the Uber before you have entered Gare du Nord. And anyone who's been to or around Gare du Nord will understand why this was important. You won't stand in the taxi queue. You won't do that. You will book the Uber, and then you will get that to the office. You will not, no matter how miserable and how much money you're trying to save the company, take the metro from Gare du Nord. And just that kind of thing. So that's why I think there's a lot of stuff that also things like the ability for users to choose to share their real-time location with a contact. All these kind of things I think are really great from that point of view. So loads of, obviously there's choose the most economical journey, all these kind of things. But I think it looks like a really sensible code of conduct on something which I think should be a useful and worthwhile app. The challenge, of course, in the UK is that there are practically no apps apart from one ancient one not from Network Rail, from whatever, the one centralized rail one, which shows you all of the train times and can show you all the train times from one place to another. So this will be a massive step up on that kind of thing. But I think this is a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's only Google Maps that gets remotely close to that at the moment, because it shows you walking, active travel, the train, the bus, the car for a particular route.
Mm-hmm.
And it may even show you costs and stuff. I can't remember. It's been so long since
Apple Maps gets pretty close over here.
Okay.
It can do similar here. Where of course, there's public transport.
Yes. I'm now going to take us to France. And there has been some confusion because they've got a new road sign. This new road sign is what Renault thought surprisingly close to looking like their logo, and it was to denote lanes that are to be used only by car sharing or emergency services, taxis. I think it's buses as well, usually on the motorways.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a diamond, and like I say, it looks a lot like the Renault symbol. So much so that Renault got their lawyers to look long and hard because they were a little bit miffed about this, but their lawyers went, "Don't bother. It's the French government. Leave them to it." It's just a nice little fun tidbit that it's not just in Britain where we have ridiculous signs and silliness.
It is actually, unusually, is a sign adopted from the US. So it used to be called a car share lane, but now it's called a multi-occupant vehicle lane or something. I don't know. I can never use them because there's normally just me anywhere that these lanes exist. I'm only ever on my own, or they're not convenient for me. They're the sign used over here for a car share lane. It bears no resemblance to a vehicle or to people in a vehicle, so it's an odd one. But then US road signs are their own law unto themselves.
Yeah, the French monitoring company says, oh, by the way, we can also spot if you've got children or small people in there through thermal imaging. So they're thermal imaging your vehicles as you go by to make sure you are compliant.
What'll be interesting is if it can tell the difference between like a dog and a person and stuff.
Yes. I think that's the end of the first part.
Yes, you're right. It's Guilt Minute, the quick break in the show where we ask for a tad of financial support to keep the lights on and the hosting running. If you feel the Motoring Podcast is worth a small consideration every month, then you can become a patron. The different levels of patron include different levels of commitment from us to you, including being able to watch the show recorded live. We also have a small range of merchandise in our spring store, from stickers to mugs and t-shirts. If you don't have any spare cash, we do completely understand, then you can help us by following for free from a podcast player to receive every show as they're released, and by liking and rating the show in whatever way your podcast supplier lets you. If you've done all of that, some of you do, so thank you very much. Then the last thing you can do is to recommend us to your friends or colleagues.
Thank you, everybody that does. It is very much appreciated. New car news, Alan? And do you want to take us to a new name?
Just quickly, there's quite a lot of new car news this week. We initially were going to do a special edition on the Munich Motor Show, and we decided not to.
And then they started revealing what was in it.
And they started revealing stuff, and frankly, we're just like, it was hard to get enthused enough to do that.
Yes, each of us was independently hoping the other one had some positivity or some enthusiasm for anything that was revealed, and it turned out neither of us did.
And we shared our notes and went, is this worth 3, 4, 5 hours of our time to do something that we're really uninspired by? And we decided that we both actually have some level of life, and that no, it wasn't. And
we didn't want to inflict it on you, the listener, either.
Well, yeah, Oscar.
Because if we didn't care.
Yes, exactly. We're going to buzz through some of the stuff that was launched there. We'll also link to a couple of summary articles that will cover everything. If there's anything interesting comes up in the next week, we'll cover it next week.
Yes.
We're not expecting to have to, but there we go. That'll be nice, won't it?
Mm.
First thing that we're going to talk about is the new 2024 Mini Cooper Electric. It's a Mini. It becomes, as every generation does, it becomes a little bit more of a pastiche of the version before, still all very much based on Frank Stevenson's rebirth of Mini at the start of the 2000s. So the outside looks the same, but smoother. It looks all right.
I think in the electric, it looks nicer. The front grille was always fussy and bits of it stuck out. It looks much better resolved.
Yeah, I find the rear light's a bit weird with the linking Hecker-blend type thing.
Oh, they're just silly.
Between them, and the fact that they're pointy, because that's taken from the Union Jack ones, which the indicator to go right was an arrow that pointed left, and that. So that seems to have been continued. So nice one, German pastiche of Britishness. But I think the big thing here is the interior. The interior is really pretty cool.
Mm.
I think what people have been talking about lots in the revealed pictures and in some spy shots that are shown in the car article that's linked. Some really nice fabrics, materials, and textures. And the central, almost completely circular touchscreen as well is pretty cool.
Yeah.
There are buttons as well. That's really cool. I think the interior is going to be a nice place to be.
Well, they've managed to keep the car at pretty much the same size as the previous generation, although the picture, the way you see them all lined up.
They do look bigger.
It looks bigger, but there's also a little bit of far away and close up, etc., and all that. You know, bring your own Father Ted meme to that. But they've made it 2 centimeters wider inside whilst keeping it effectively the same size on the outside, which I think is a brilliant trick. It being electric, I think, probably helped with that, as opposed to the last one, which was based on an ICE version, where they'd slammed some batteries. Because on that front, isn't there better range and stuff?
Yes. So range supposedly of about 190 miles, which should be absolutely stacks, frankly. 190 miles is actually not bad, but then quite a lot, you know, especially for a Mini, if it's not really meant to be a car that is regularly driven from city to city.
Yeah, but at 30 grand, you want
the ability to do it. Well, that's it.
Because that's the starter. That's the starter. At 30 grand, you would hope for 190 mile.
That's pretty much a bargain these days.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. You're right. But
for 4.5 more though, you get 250 mile range.
That's pretty good
as well. So that's considering the average price appears to be for vehicles around that sort of range of 30 to 35,000, Mini have landed slap bang in the middle, and now it really is a fight over what is it I want from the car, because that's the same price as that Volvo EX 30, 40, whatever it is.
30 is.
You've got the BYD stuff at that price as well. You've got MG, you've got, there's Kia, Hyundai. There's lots of stuff about that price. It really is down to what badge do I want and what am I trying to do with the car.
Absolutely. It's cool from those points of view. They called the interior charismatic simplicity. For those of you who have seen pictures of the inside of the revised Tesla Model 3, it's not that. It's it is kind of it's minimal, but yet there is also some sort of life form, and it does look like it's been finished. They've got some other bits. There'll be a new Hey Mini, which will be a personal assistant based off an Android software stack. At Shanghai, they showed a British bulldog motif called Spike being used in China to emphasize the Britishness, but it's and act as one of the personal assistants. So there's such a popular feature in China, but it'll be interesting to see if that makes it to European and North American models. Anyway, it's really cool. I really like it. I think it's fun. If you're going to go, oh, it's not a Mini anymore, it's a Maxi, and all these other incredibly unamusing tropes that we've all sort of managed to get over, then there will be a new, smaller Mini Aceman. Yes, yes, they've taken the P. Launched later in 2024. So, there'll be a smaller Mini than the Mini. There'll be a Mini.
Okay, well, talking of Mini that isn't smaller, it's the new Countryman. Now, whilst they kept the Mini Cooper, which replaced the Mini Cooper to pretty much the same size, the Countryman has grown. And now this is much more in line with what you would expect a typical SUV to be in size for a family.
Is it worth mentioning that the previous Mini Countryman was the same platform as the BMW X1?
That is worth saying, yes.
Yes, there we are.
Well said.
If the X1 gets bigger, this gets bigger too.
Yep, quite. But that means that there's more room on the inside as well. So for passengers, it's much better. And also the boot goes up to 480 litres, up to the whatever they measure to with seats up. I don't know whether it's the bottom of the windows or what.
It sounds like bottom of the windows measurement.
Yeah, it does sound like that. It's also going to come in petrol as well as EV. For the petrol, it starts at 28,500 with 168 brake horsepower, but that emits between 138 to 155 grams per kilometre of CO2. Then you've got the Countryman S, which is 33,900. Then you've got the Countryman JCW All 4 at 39,900, which is obviously your maximum spec'd out one. And if we go to the EV versions, the Countryman Electric starts at 41,400 for 287 miles. And then the Countryman Electric SE All 4 is 46,600. I presume it's the same mileage or mile range. Might be a little bit less because it's quicker to 0 to 62 and has a slightly higher top speed. Not that that's relevant.
Could be both, depending on what it is you're doing at any moment in time. Yeah.
Yes. Again, the interior looks really good. It's got that same central dial that has everything in it that looks fabulous. I'd love to experience
loads of component sharing.
Yes.
Because that round screen is going to be relatively expensive, way more expensive to produce than a square one. Let's use it in as many things as we possibly can, amortize that cost out, and then bring the cost down through volume. Lots of shared switches, shared steering wheel, obviously, because most manufacturers do that these days. Door switches and stuff. Loads of shared bits and pieces. Love it.
Really like the exterior design as well. I think they've smartened it up. And the back end looks surprisingly, but the rear end looks really good, I think. Both those are linked in the show notes. Car Magazine is where we are sending you to read more about it.
Cool. So that's us done interesting and charismatic. Now let's talk about the new Volkswagen Passat.
Oh my God.
Okay, it's an car. As somebody on Twitter said, the MG5 people must be very pleased with how Volkswagen have stolen their copy their notes.
But okay, what's the one positive, Alan?
It's only available as an estate car.
So we were very upset, but understand the reasons why when Volvo said no estate. Here is a company that's saying you can only get an estate. However,
I mean, everything else is just genero Volkswagen. I don't even... Imagine a Volkswagen estate, folks. There we go. That's the new Passat. There's really not much more we can say about it. The launch cars seem to be in quite a pleasant but unassuming greeny grey colour. I quite like that. Everything else is a Volkswagen.
What do you think is going on, though, with their design? I mean, I know Volkswagen, of all in the group, are the most conservative, but they've gone from conservative to just dull.
I think that this is a vehicle for the German fleet market. Incredibly conservative, small c, in their choices. A certain sort of middle market German, middle class German market, mid price, mid everything.
To take the Insignia market.
To take the, which was obviously
Insignia
brilliant.
Mondeo.
Yeah. It's really, we'd rather you bought an Audi, but then... by the way, curious lack of anything from Audi at all at this motor show.
No, was there not the Q6 e-tron shown with yet another square wheel?
Yeah, well, there we go. That proves my point, really, doesn't it?
But of interesting note, though, just weeks after the new CEO said, our interiors have been awful and we've really turned our customers off. We will be putting buttons back in. And then we had a go because they said, we're doing a great job with the spreadsheet to see where people touch in the car. When we said, what were you doing for the last 50 years beforehand? They've installed a touchscreen that has everything and no buttons.
Yes, I think it was possibly came around too late for the button option.
Yes.
But there we go. Shall we move on from that? Because it's very tedious and slightly angering.
Yes. I'm going to move us well into the Munich reveals now. And that is BMW's Neue Klasse concept, which seemed to initially get a lot of positive reaction. I think primarily because it wasn't one of the iXs or the i7 or something like that we've been subjected to recently.
Yes.
So this is their vision of how they're going to move forward with a look for the brand, which is a lot cleaner, a lot less fussy, a lot less slashes, swoops, and aggressive. However, I am whelmed.
It's worth mentioning. A couple of weeks ago, I posted a photo of a BMW M3 in green with tan interior. And I said, I like the color. I have never had so much hate in response to a tweet ever.
Really?
About how much people dislike, or how much mouthy rude sods on the internet dislike the look of the current BMW M3 and M4. When really all I did was post a picture of a car and say, I like the color. And so there was a lot. I mean, it's great for the engagement stats, but not really that pleasant. I didn't really care about your opinion. I just thought the color, it was a really nice green. This seems to have a more mixed reaction, with people either loving it or hating it. My reaction is a little like Andrew. It's a bit meh. I think it looks like the Lincoln Mark Z 3 to 5 series type car that has been out here in the US and has evolved through a couple of generations. The rear lights are almost identical. The front grille is not a million miles away from one of the vehicles that seems to have carried on the Jerry McGovern Lincoln look from when he was the head of styling, head of art over here a few years ago. It's all right. It's not a bit. I just don't get the BMW-ness of it. I mean, it's got a Hofmeister kink. Woo!
The biggest thing for me in all of this is, how's that a BMW? That's just a generic car with a few daft things like the windows.
It's got actual
all the glass
windows.
Go lower than a line and all that sort of silliness. And then there's the interior side of things where they show off their new cockpit with it again. We discussed a couple of months ago a full screen, full width window screen to distract people is just that's.
Do you know what?
Daft,
I think if it was changed at the front and it had it had two small kidneys towards the middle and then two round headlamps towards the outer edge, I would like it much more, and I would sit here and go, "Gosh, I can see how that harks back to the E33 series."
Mm-hmm.
Especially, we had many of those. My dad worked for BMW garage at the time, so they were his company car. If it had those, then everyone would be, I'd probably be straight on it. There's lots and lots of flickback things, like the velour interior, which I'm not as traumatized by it as I was by MB Techs in another vehicle of my father's. But, I do remember the way that velour imprints itself into the back of your legs. I'm sorry if there's noise in the background. Andrew can't do anything about it in the edit. People have literally just started thumping the living socks off my balcony. I think there's some of that. Oh, look, it says there was something about the E30, which wasn't a sports car, but an elegant simplicity. It does hark back to that kind of stuff. I don't think that anything production is going to look at all like this. I think it's going to be darker with thicker pillars and all that stuff. I still prefer it to the Mercedes CLA, which just looks like it hates itself.
What I like out of both of those is they're very clean lines.
There is,
instead of all the swoops and slashes. If they're going to maintain that, like you, I don't believe most of this will actually happen on a road car.
I think the swoops and slashes are done. I think their day has happened.
I hope so.
I think that, well done, you've all shown off how many different curvatures you can print into metal. Let's move on, please. I'm not looking for a Cybertruck, but I am looking, we don't need, we need something intelligent. We don't need everything sort of stamped and swooped and muscled and pummeled the way it has been. I think the really good thing about it, whether you like this concept and whether you like the CLA or not, I think that it's starting to show a move away from that, and possibly manufacturers being more confident in their design work rather than, oh my goodness, we've run out of ideas, let's put in another hole, another swoop, another lump. Shall we move on from the rant, please?
Yep. There will be also a couple of links to Car and Autocar's roundup of the Munich Motor Show. But we're going to move now to China and the Polstones 01, which is a Defender, Toyota, Hyundai,
everything.
Large 4x4.
Even the name is basically stolen. I
missed.
Geely must be
mistyped
sharp.
it about 4 times.
Geely's lawyers will be sharpening their pencils. Land Rover's lawyers should be sharpening their pencils. Toyota's lawyers should be sharpening their pencils. It's not unattractive. It is as if you fed images of those 4 or 5 vehicles into one of these AI picture bot things and said, tell me what you make of this. it would come up with this.
Yeah, there is some impressive tech on this. I mean, it's got a 56 kilowatt battery. This is a plug-in hybrid, by the way. A range extender. And it'll go 146 miles on electricity alone. And with the assistance of the engine, that goes up to 692 miles, apparently, according to the Chinese test cycle. There's lots of driver assistance stuff.
That's obligatory in China, though.
Yes. Yeah. But the most striking thing is how close it does look to all this. I mean, you've got a kitchen in there as well.
Yeah.
I mean, they have thrown the kitchen sink at it as well, etc., etc.
Yeah. It comes with it can have a kitchenette integrated in the tailgate, including an induction hob and a water dispenser. It's called the restaurant system. Loads of stuff. But definitely the whole, moron in a hurry test, it fails. It looks like a Defender, especially in some of the lifestyle photos. If you go to the Autocar article that we linked, and you see the one with the big gazebo poking out, you have to do a double take to check whether that's a Defender or not. Seriously, it is so close.
Yep.
It's back to the bad old days of China copying. Okay.
Yeah, do read through the show notes and click on the link to check that one out.
Andrew, Alfa Romeo.
Yes, Alfa Romeo have come up with the 33 Stradale that was revealed last week. This is a supercar that can be in either internal combustion engine or electric form and is £1.7 million to buy. With that name, it is clearly harking back to greatness in the past. And I come away from looking at the outside and go, it's all right.
I think the problem, as we discussed before the show, the problem is that the original vehicle on which it is based is so incredibly stunning.
Yes.
And then on this, they'll be squeezing it around an existing supercar platform, possibly from Maserati. Possibly, I'm saying. I'm not actually sure. It doesn't say anywhere in the Autocar article that's linked.
Well, I bet they're going to make it very clear again. This is nothing to do with Ferrari. There is no Ferrari engine, even if we've cut out bits of Ferrari.
Yes.
Etc., etc.
Yes. I don't know. It's being offered with a 3-litre twin turbocharged V6, so that makes me think it might be other stuff. It is a good looker. Is it £1.7 million worth of good looker? Nah. Is it as good looking as the original? Definitely not. Is it a very nice thing? Yes.
They're selling just 33, and they have orders placed for 10 V6 engined and 2 electric ones. It says the remaining owners still to decide.
It makes me believe that they already have, that they know who they are. But oakley doke. One last one. Remember how back a few years ago, if manufacturers kind of wanted to kill off a brand without killing off a brand, they made it an all-electric vehicle company. Then it was before its time and the vehicles weren't ready, and so the brand kind of died a death, disappeared off into the ether. SEAT is going to stop badging cars and is going to become a mobility company. We've said for a long, long time that Volkswagen hasn't really known what to do with SEAT, hasn't really had an idea or a clue. Turns out what it's going to do is it's going to kind of get rid of it. Cupra is going to be the brand.
Well, Cupra is what they promised SEAT would be.
It is, but with a nastier badge. And it is, so Cupra is really what, as you say, it's what SEAT should really have been. I still don't really understand why they made a new brand.
Yeah, not needing the new brand, but, they've been let down by successive leaders of the VW group.
I would say so. Well, they're not German, so they're not as important.
Yeah.
Basically. I mean, SEAT did have the lowest sort of new car ownership age of any brand, phenomenally low, for quite a long time, especially when I was growing up. You grew up before me. Dig that one in there.
Oh, you say grow up.
Yeah, exactly. It's all
I am older than you.
It's all relative. So yes, it's a bit of a shame, but on the other hand, everybody's been going for a little while.
Yeah.
To celebrate, Cupra showed a concept car called the Cupra Dark Rebel, which is great because that's the next in a line of SEAT-based sports cars that will just not appear ever, ever, ever So there we go. Who cares?
Yeah.
That finally is the end of the new cars.
Right. I will take us into points of interest. And we start with the lunchtime watch and read. Last weekend, Alan and I decided not to be too much on social media because many of you went off to Radwood and we hated you all deeply because we weren't there as well.
Mm-hmm.
We've got linked a HubNut video, which is about 25 minutes long, I think it is.
Yeah, it's about 20 minutes.
Yeah, 20 minutes long. Excellent. You get to get a real good feel of what the show was like, the cars that were there, and how many people that we know from Twitter were there. Curse you all. But there's also a really good article from Haggerty, which has some wonderful pictures showing you what was going on. First of all, congratulations to Katie Bushell for her VW Sirocco winning the show and shine.
Yeah.
That Charlotte Bowden, Hannah Gordon, and friend of the show, Chris Pollitt. They call him YouTuber Chris Pollitt in this article. Chris Pollitt judged, and they had some this commended vehicles as well in there. But also there was the Hot Wheels Legends Tour was there to find what was going to be the entry from the UK to the Hot Wheels overall. Because if you remember last year, it was a UK car that won the overall thing that they made into a new Hot Wheels.
Yeah, it was the Volvo P1800 Gasser Dragster.
Yeah. This one was judged by TV's Paul Cowland, also TV's Abigail Andre, Steve Parrish, the motorcycle racer, podcaster Richard Porter, and Hot Wheels design manager Craig Callum. And they had some great things to pick from. But what won it was the MGB-East. That was, it just looks amazing. It's an MGB that things have been done to, and it looks ace.
It was all done by its owner, Michael Wallhead. So it's all done by him, restored from nothing by him to what it is just now. I don't know the specs of it, but there will be an in-depth look at it on Haggerty soon. So we will probably cover that as another lunchtime read in itself. But it's a great looking thing. Really cool. And yes, slightly jealous of the rest of the day. Lots to keep you occupied. You can over your lunchtime there with 20 minutes of video and 10 minutes of reading. List of the week this week. Then it is interesting four-wheel drive saloons we forgot all about. One thing I've noticed is that in North America, there are far more four-wheel drive saloons available than there are in Europe.
Why do you think that is?
It's colder, slippier winters. I drove a Alfa Giulia Q4, which again, not spec that we get in right-hand drive the other week, and it was as nice as any other Alfa Giulia I've ever driven. I think a lot of it is to do with packaging. Basically, if you have to package it for left-hand drive or right-hand drive, you package it for left-hand drive. And so it's not sold in the UK. Okay. So, yeah, many here. Andrew, what would you choose?
Like you say, there's quite a few to pick from. But for me, it will be the Jaguar XJ that I've still never driven, and you have, and please don't rub it in again.
It's really nice. Suede headlining.
Yeah.
Purple dashboard. Okay. It was gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
There are 17.
Your suede fetish where you're rubbing things again. So what about you?
I could go car I know well, or I could go for something more left field. I'm going to remind people that the Mazda 6 MPS existed. That was my number 2 Mazda
choice.
Speed 6 if you're in the US. Yeah, my best mate had one, which was quite rapid until the point when I said, I'm not driving that anymore. It's too rapid.
Says the man who owns a Grim.
Whose was no, it was ridiculously quick without you realizing how ridiculously quick it was. Until, of course, Cylinder 3 decided to make a bid for freedom. And that was yeah. Well, it's got the engine that's now the Ford EcoBoost 2.3 turbo that they keep making such a big deal about. It's what Ford won out of the split from Mazda. They won the EcoBoost engine. It's an early version of that engine. It can be really quite tuned. It is a very comfortable, fast, nice car, which is impossible to find in good condition now.
I bet. Okay, it's the and finally. Now, we're picking an article from last year, but this is more of a reminder that Goodwood Revival is almost upon us, and this is talking last year about how it was the 10th year of the Setrington Cup at Goodwood. Now, that's the one where all the kids do the Le Mans start and pedal furiously down a course to see who wins.
All in Austin J40s. Yes.
Yes.
J40 pedal cars. It's just great. I think it's very, very cool. We're going to start our coverage on Saturday morning with that. It starts at what time, Andrew? Because you know all these things and I don't.
11:45, I think. The race is due to begin. So we will be there a minute or two beforehand.
There is quite a lot of faffage beforehand, so I'll be surprised if it does start exactly at 11:45.
Yeah, I don't expect it to start at 11:45, but just in case it does, we will be there a couple of minutes beforehand. What you need to remember when you join us for a watch-along as we prattle along and talk to each other whilst watching the fabulous revival is that you will need to have Goodwood's own YouTube channel open separately in a different window to us because we are not allowed, due to copyright issues, to have their thing in our stream at the same time.
We technically have the ability to do it, we're just not allowed to.
Yes.
We'll include a link to that. They've already published the link for their live stream. I see from my own YouTubes. So we'll have a link to that in the various notes and the reminders and the stuff that we'll send out and ping during the week.
Yep. We'll also be there on the Sunday too.
Mm-hmm.
So on the Saturday, we're going to go from the Setrington Cup all the way through to the Whitson Trophy.
Yeah, that means about as much to you as it does to me, folks. So
that last race is due to kick off at 5 to 6. So think beyond that. So depending how long that, I can't remember how long the race is.
After lunch, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. We're getting you up first thing in the morning, so it's fine. Evens out. But then on the Sunday, we are back for part 2 of the Setrington Cup, which is allegedly 11:55, so a little bit later. Alan gets a 10-minute lie-in. And then we will finish at the end of the St. Mary's Trophy race. Now, the Goodwood coverage carries on because there's prize giving and stuff like that. But we are going to stop at the end of the trophy because we will have talked a lot for 2 days. You will probably be sick of the sound of us, and we may not have voices.
Yeah.
So we hope you can join us. We'd love for you to be along there and chatting with us in the chat, as it were. And I'm looking forward to it. Actually.
Yeah, me too. Me too. It should be good.
The weather's supposed to be cracking as well.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Same here, yes. So it'll be, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. We were meant to do it for proper Goodwood, but obviously the weather intervened there, so we didn't. So yeah, we'll see how we get on. It should be fun to try it out anyway.
Yep.
That, I think, have we covered all of the parish notes? Yes, which included all the dates and times that I'd forgotten. So maybe I should have opened those and read them as well, because Andrew was more prepared than me as usual. Anyway, between now and Saturday, and indeed between now and next week, you can give us any feedback, share your thoughts for the show at Motoring Podcast on Twitter and Instagram, on Facebook, and on the contact page of motoringpodcast.com, the hub of all our activities. Remember, you can support us financially via Patreon, and please leave a review and rating on Apple Podcasts, or however your podcast app lets you do such a thing. Andrew, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Best way to get in touch with me is either on Twitter or Mastodon. If you search for Crack Windscreen, you should find me there. And Alan, if people would like to know just how scary the Mazda 6 really was, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Best way to get in touch with me is on any of the established social media channels. I'm including Mastodon in that for whatever reason, where I'm at AJP Bradley. That's Bradley. We'll be back very soon, but until then, I've been Alan Bradley.
I've been Andrew Clues.
And safe motoring.